Namaskar, friends. Welcome to Heartland Bengali. And today we have with us Infi back again for another round of Adda. And a warm welcome to all the new subscribers and viewers. And thank you to the new subscribers and thank you to the old subscribers. And it's heartening to know we are basically very happy, the two of us, to see that you guys are watching the videos, you guys are putting in your feedback, you guys are trying to get in touch. It's a very warm feeling. So with that and with the kind of reception that we have received as far as our last video chat with Infi is concerned, Infi is back again, and today we have got 2 to 3 specific questions which I'm going to put across to Infi, and I'm going to let Infi talk. And these questions are a sort of you could say a sort of a carry forward from the last discussions that we have, but none the same, it's not required for you to go back into the last discussion and watch it all over again if you've missed. But however, if you like the discussion that we're going to have, if you like the points of view that are put across, then I would welcome you to go and watch our last video. Please like our channel, please subscribe to our channel, and here we start. Infi, welcome to the second round of Heartland Adda.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, and Jai Shri Ram to all your listeners.
Thank you, Infi. Okay, Infi, I have straight questions to you this time round.
Yeah.
Last Adda was a kind of a discussion. It was a lot of back and forth that happened. We were exploring topics. We were finding out areas of common interest. This time around, my question to you, based on your views, based on your analysis, based on your understanding, is that there seems to be an asymmetric war against India, which has been waged primarily by Wall Street, Silicon Valley, and NGO. They are funding it. And this is probably the concept of United States-led Western administration. So, so can you elaborate on that? If you agree to it, can you agree with it? Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, I do agree with that. So to understand this, we have to go back to the end of the World War II.
Okay.
The end of the World War II was the effective end of the British hegemony. The British Empire was receding. They had suffered terrible losses in the war, and they now could not maintain colonies that they were maintaining prior to the war. And United States of America is till date the only country that came out of a war more economically powerful than it was before the war.
Yes.
Before the war, United States was in turmoil. They had that Great Depression and the Wall Street crash and all that trouble. And after the war, they were, I think they were handling 50% of all global trade and 60% of entire global finance. So it was clear that the succession of the world hegemon will go to America. And America knew right then that nationalist movements are a threat to them. And nationalist movements could have been of any variety. It could have been Soviet nationalism that took the form of communism, or it could have been Chinese nationalism. And so they felt threatened by all nationalistic movements, because essentially every nationalist movement repels foreign control. So naturally, they saw the Indian independence struggle, which was primarily led by Hindus. It had a Hindu character. As much as the Congress party wanted it to be secular, it had a Hindu character. So United States felt threatened by that as well. So it's this urge of world sort of global domination that results in US funding asymmetric war against India. So now, how do they do it? The British Empire was a militant empire. Like, they would invade externally. US excels in cultural subjugation. They will fund intellectual material that maligns a country's nationalist movements, that maligns a country's national culture, so that the country becomes subservient to America. And this they do using NGOs and foundations. Now, what do these NGOs and foundations do? They essentially publish intellectual material. When I say intellectual material, I mean articles, saying that Hindus are fascists, or Hindus are intolerant, or there is no freedom of speech in India. In fact, just a few months ago, US State Department funded a study in which they showed that India has less academic freedom than Afghanistan. Afghanistan doesn't even have any academics, and they said that we have less academic freedom. So this is the kind of thing they do. So this is basically what the intent of this kind of intellectual study is to first subvert the universities. Universities like JNU, like Jamia or DU, and all these universities. So what they do is they will fund something, let's say the narrative that Brahmins are oppressive and SC/STs are they need reservations. Yeah, they need reservation, they need quotas. So now this particular thing cannot be brought in policy straight up. You have to create the ground for it. So first they will fund some articles, then some random papers, then some talks, then some conferences. Finally, there will come a government that will bring this this entire thing to media. Then someone will bring it to the parliament, and finally, the policy will be passed. This is what we saw when BJP passed all that transgender laws and feminist laws. Since many years, US funded NGOs and foundations were creating the basis for it. They were funding all kinds of conferences in JNU, in IITs, in DU for this kind of policy. And finally, a few years ago, these things came. And now they are setting up the base to bring in reservations for Dalit Muslims, for Dalit Christians. Their argument is that even after Hindus convert to Muslims and Christianity, the identity of Dalit sticks. I mean, it's obviously not true. It's a complete lie, but that's what they want. That's what they want, that India's meritocratic system is hit. The people, the general caste, they are hit. And so incompetence flourishes and India remains subservient to the international masters of America. So this is the primary goal. And it's not that only India is subjected to this kind of subversionist project. All nations in various ways, they are subjected to this. It's just that India is intrinsically linked, India's heart and soul is intrinsically linked with Hindu Dharma. And so the attack against Hindu Dharma.
Okay. So there are a few things
and by the way, these things happen in accordance with Vatican and other churches of Europe as well. Like mostly two of the most funds that come from churches are from the Swiss Lutheran Church and the Swedish Orthodox Church, and along with the obvious links from Vatican.
And you have the entire plethora of the NGOs and the different foundations, etc., which are there. And you also have the present players like Wall Street and Silicon Valley, which are there.
No, actually, Wall Street and Silicon Valley are essentially the US deep state. What we call the quote-unquote US deep state is Wall Street and Silicon Valley. When I say that America wants global domination, it's Wall Street and Silicon Valley who want global domination. Because they are
one second. So if Wall Street and Silicon Valley are you saying that they are the deep state, or are you saying that they have a certain amount of influence in the United States administration, and together
they are the deep state.
Okay,
they are the deep state. I'll tell you. I'll tell you a bit of a background on this. Around 1919, I think. That was the time when Wall Street came up with a think tank called Council for Foreign Relations. Essentially, this think tank was to give advices to the US government on their foreign relations and what to do with different nations. This entire think tank to this date is dominated by Wall Street lawyers and Wall Street bankers. Many of the topmost people in US history have been people from this think tank, like Henry Kissinger, Dwight D. Eisenhower, Harry Truman, and the first director of CIA, Allen Dulles. They were all from Council on Foreign Relations. So this is the organization that laid the foundations of the globalist American empire, the America that wants global domination. Because Wall Street is the financial power behind everything. They are the ones who fund Silicon Valley. They are the ones who fund all military industrial complexes. They are the ones who fund all entire real estate sector and all that. So they are the ones who kickstarted the concept of a global American empire. So it's their project essentially.
Okay. Now, two things which I wanted you to sort of, touch upon, if you can, if you think, for our viewers' understanding. The first thing that comes to my mind is, the viewer needs to understand that this is not something out of the ordinary. This is not a random event that United States has got such and such plans, which takes me back to the to 1950s and McCarthyism. Would you want to talk a little bit about McCarthyism as to, I mean, just to drive the point home that whatever is happening today, this asymmetric war against India that is happening today, and a lot of people are witnessing that. That is not something which is out of the blue. That is not something which is novel. That is something that is a part of something which has been going on for the past 60, 70, 80 years around the world with different countries. And McCarthyism is something which comes to mind. Would you want to talk about briefly about it?
This United States style of funding NGOs and foundations and intellectuals, this was actually a Nazi warfare technique. After World War II, the most of the Nazi NGOs and foundations that were controlled by the Nazis, they were appropriated by the CIA. They took the control over them, and to launch a sort of disinformation campaign against Soviet Union, saying that Soviet Union is evil, Soviet Union is dystopia, it's collapsing, and all that nonsense. So, as you rightly said, this goes back a long back. And that time they had something called the Congress of Cultural Freedom, in which they employed philosophers and economists and writers who would do the same thing they are doing to India, to the Soviet Union, like to fund intellectual material against Soviet Union, to fund disinformation against Soviet Union, and just to make hollow out the Soviet Union. So
and to make sure that the third world, the so-called global South, doesn't get into the ambits of communism and doesn't embrace communism as an ideology, right?
Yes. Actually, their movements against communism was not because they were anti-communist. Their movements against communism was because communism was giving rise to nationalist movements. And nationalist movements, as I said, they will resist foreign intervention. They will resist foreign control. So that's why they were against communism. And if you look, they appropriated the left of Europe just so that they can oppose Soviet nationalism. Communism was their America's anti-communist stance was just a cover. Essentially, they were going against all nationalist movements. They didn't care if it was right wing or it was left wing. If you are nationalistic, if you are opposing America, America will go against you. Doesn't matter what your ideology is. So
and so this is all keeping the fact in mind. Then the next layer that opens up is, this is all keeping the fact in mind that nobody should oppose their idea of a globalized world order.
Their idea of a global,
which in short is what we call globalization.
Globalization is okay. Globalization basically just means a globally integrated economic system led by technology. This is okay. What America wants is globalism, in which they control what the globe will do. They control all the laws. They control all the economies. They already control World Bank, IMF, and all that. The debt trap and all that kind of thing. So,
but don't you think you are when you limit globalization as just a connected world, technologically connected world, you're essentially missing out the main practical application of globalization, which has happened since the 1950s and the 1960s, this side, the western side of the world, where yes, the idea was to promote a certain form of consumerism through reaching different brands all across the globe, where political boundary was not a holding factor. But what happened as a result of this kind of a facade, keeping this kind of a facade in front, is American global order found it easier to take over country, because through brands they started influencing through soft power, they started influencing through Hollywood, they started influencing through management schools. Don't you think these two are interrelated?
yeah, these are interrelated, but the truth is globalization also led to the creation of China, also led to the creation of Russia, which are the two nations which are forming the biggest resistance to the American capture.
And China was a
So
mistake, which they realized after inclusion of China in WTO, when China injected those
yeah,
7
yeah.
million or 17 million workers, they realized their mistake. But by then it was too
Yeah,
late,
yeah.
actually.
Yeah, and then, I mean, no, I mean that's what I'm saying. People like Henry Kissinger. I mean, Kissinger was a different personality back then.
Mm-hmm.
Now he opposes this, the American obsession with controlling everything, because he has now realized that technology has gone beyond America's control, and now there is no practical way you are going to subvert a nation and the people are not going to resist.
Mm-hmm.
If you try to control a nation top down, typical colonial empire, they will oppose, people will oppose, because people, just one Twitter thread can do a lot of things these days. So what I mean by globalization is that globalization also gave the third world the power to resist all these things, the power to know these things. I mean, 30-40 years ago we wouldn't be having this conversation. Most people wouldn't have been knowing these things.
But don't you
So
think this is a result? This is an unseen result of something. When you put into motion things as huge as this, there would be, there would be consequences which you cannot
yes,
control.
yes. Yeah, of course, and many people actually saw this.
Mm-hmm.
Many people saw this coming. Many people say, I think it was that guy from RSS, Dattopant Thengadi, who rightly said that he said it in, I think, early 70s, that by the end of the 80s,
Mm.
Soviet Union will collapse,
Mm-hmm.
and after the collapse of the Soviet Union, America will enter a long phase of decay, and their global capital will start, the global capitalist power will start hollowing out. So yeah, as you said, globalization, I mean, the resistance that came towards America due to globalization was an unintended consequences. And mm, yeah, I mean, yeah, that I agree with.
Okay. So we we thought it would be one question turned out to be a series of questions. We go to the next question, or let's say the next subtopic in today's discussion, which is, what is the current government doing? Where is it going wrong? Are they clearly out of their depth, or do they not want to fight this kind of a Western onslaught? Over to you.
Okay, so this the current regime is very much intertwined with the US NGO Foundation nexus.
Okay.
So yeah, in just a few months ago, there came a big breakthrough by Rajiv Malhotra that Niti Aayog is supplying data to Harvard University. The data they are gathering from surveys and census and all the Harvard universities, and Harvard University is exploiting that data to fund anti-Hindu, anti-India intellectuals. And some people in Twitter said that, oh, Niti Aayog has been infiltrated and somebody is leaking the information. Actually, it's not infiltration or leaking the information. Niti Aayog explicitly signed an agreement with Harvard University for an exchange of data. Okay,
Okay.
and and um, and then you see people like Bill Gates and Melinda Gates meeting Jay Shankar, meeting the ministers of the BJP, Narendra Modi meeting Henry Kissinger just after Pulwama attack happened, and then U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry coming to India and saying that evangelism has been evangelism has been USA's long-term foreign policy tool, and just few words after, Narendra Modi lifts up the ban from Compassion International, which is an evangelist NGO funded by the Vatican.
Mm-hmm.
So this government is deeply intertwined with the international American cabal, and I don't know what Narendra Modi is personally, what his personal ideology is, but I can say for sure that BJP is definitely controlled by a lot of the foreign powers that are anti-Hindu in America.
Okay. So then that brings me to the, I mean, it's less of a question, more of something which like an ideal wonderment. How is BJP different from UPA then?
BJP is different from UP only that they are not leftist and they are good economically. the progress that has happened in the last few years in terms of infrastructure and laying down foundations for some of the businesses, it's good. But essentially, if your point is right, that in India, almost all political parties have globally vested interests. And it's very hard to distinguish. If you just look at purely from a cultural perspective, a civilizational perspective, it's very hard to distinguish from which is better and which is not. They are equally, they are as destructive as the other. And if you, now that you brought up the question of the UPA, it's actually the left and the left of Congress and the entire Communist Party nexus of India that gave BJP and still gives BJP the most legitimacy towards in front of voters, because Narendra Modi has never explicitly said that he wants Hindu Rashtra, or that he is a Hindu politician, or that they are a Hindutva party. It's this wire quint, Rahul Gandhi, Sitaram Yechuri, and all these leftist politician intellectuals. They constantly bombard the public with this idea that BJP is pro-Hindu, that BJP is pro-Hindutva, that they're batting for Hindu policies. In reality, they are not. They are just as liberal and secular as regimes before them. So it's kind of like, I think it's best said by Michael Sandel. He says that nowadays politicians in developing nations relate more to their foreign counterparts than they do to their own people. They want to look good in multinational summits and in their parties and all the meetings and stuff. They don't care about what their public wants. It's completely true for India.
This is an incredibly important point that you made. An incredibly important point. I hope viewers who are listening should, viewers who are listening register this comment, the kind of impact that it could have. That it is the leftist media that is making out a particular party to be of a particular shade, which it probably isn't, because they haven't said anything of that sort in their past 5-10 years of being in power. That's an incredibly important point. Brings me
and one more thing. In 2005, there was a WikiLeaks transcript in which Jaitley is openly saying to the US ambassador that Hindutva is going to be BJP's electoral plank. So, they are openly saying that. And in that, Jaitley also says that if we want to whip off more nationalist sentiments in favor of BJP, we need some cross-border terrorist operation or something like that. We need problems. We need problems to sell to the public so that they can come to the BJP. So that's
that's there. Yes, I forgot about that. That data is there, so that is for anyone to check. You can just do a Google search and you can find out. Okay, so
you can find on my Facebook page. I have that.
Oh, you have it, yeah. Okay. So brings us back to the to sort of the last question. So we've seen a surge. I mean, whether this current party has explicitly said so, whether this current party has been pushing us to assume certain things or whatever, what has happened in the past 5, 6, 7 years or 10 years is that there's been a fledgling nationalist movement, a fledgling Indic movement, so to speak. Now, given the fact that we are kind of overwhelmed as far as the asymmetric war of the West is concerned against India, where do you think, what do you think is going to happen to the nationalistic, the Indic movement, the identity movement? What is going to do? Does it have a future? What do you think?
Yeah, it does have a future, which looks grim at the moment. Actually, what the BJP and RSS have been successfully able to do is that they have been able to appropriate all the Hindu talking points, all the Hindu identity, and detach them of their core. In a sense, Hindu resurgence would have been much more powerful had BJP RSS not been present. I'll actually go back to 2004 when Jaitley lost the general elections. Vajpayee lost the general elections, and Modi won Gujarat. The first thing Modi does after winning Gujarat is that he starts reopening the cases against Vishwa Hindu Parishad and Bajrang Dal workers. He starts reopening all those cases, and this leads to Prahlad Shastri, a firebrand BJVHP leader, committing suicide. So, and few RSS leaders back in the 90s when Babri Masjid was taken down, said in the Western press, specifically to Americans, that RSS will help in countering Hindu fringe elements. By fringe elements, they mean the extremist elements.
Okay.
And if you look at what the BJP and RSS have been doing, they have been doing just that. To appropriate Hindu talking points, but then not do anything about it. Like they appropriated the Free Hindu Temples movement, but so far nothing has happened in the Free Hindu Temples movement. Instead, state governments of BJP has taken more temples under their control, and they have imposed more taxes in the temples, and they are now using those taxes to fund minority benefits for Muslims and Christians. And now when you look at the hardcore BJP fanboys in internet, they now talk about how BJP is a true secular party. Like they are the true secularists, and Congress were the fake secularists.
Fake secularists.
As if there is any difference between true secularism and fake secularism. And whatever were the core Hindu issues, they are neglected. And you see this constantly, like Hindus, BJP did nothing to defend the Hindus in Bengal. BJP did nothing to defend the Hindus in Delhi when they were getting killed during the anti-CA riots. They did nothing to safeguard Hindus in Karnataka when there was an uprising during the Nupur Sharma saga. And they have pushed for much more SC, ST, Dalit reservations than governments before them. So BJP, in a sense, is hollowing out the Hindu resurgence from within. And Hindus will do themselves a lot of favor if they detach themselves from the BJP. Like they come out of this thinking that BJP, RSS have their best interests in mind. They are politicians. They have their own interests in mind, first of all. They want to win the elections. And the way they win elections is to keep pulling out the Hindu issues and not solve them. So yeah, the future of Hindu resurgence at this point looks very grim, because obviously at the political level we have no real alternative to the twin paradox of Congress and BJP. And most people are way too ego invested in BJP to see what they've been doing really.
And even if they do this, as you said, the ego stops them from getting out of it.
Yeah, and I'll say one more point here. Most people, I have had this someone say to me that, oh, Narendra Modi's diplomacy has been excellent. His foreign policy has been excellent, which I would kind of agree with, but it's irrelevant. Because if you look at, I'll take the example of Soviet Union. Till the very last day Soviet Union was there, till the day of their collapse, they had perhaps the most diplomatic power and global pull in the world. That didn't help them in saving themselves. That didn't stop the collapse. Having diplomatic power, having geopolitical relations does not guarantee you have internal stability. I mean, yeah, you can have, you can bypass NATO and buy cheap Russian oil. But if you cannot defend your national capital from taking down from the rioters, then there is no use to that foreign policy. There is no use to that diplomacy.
Right. Actually, foreign policy is a reflection of your domestic stability. What is foreign policy? How you deal with other countries. I mean, exactly. whether you are in a position to deal with other countries is like a kind of a derivative of how strong you are domestically, how strong you are internally. Exactly. If you're not internally strong, there's no amount of international posturing is going to help you in any which way.
Yep. And if your internal politics is way too unstable, and economy is like BJP has clocked perhaps the worst growth rate in the last decade, when such problems are going on internally, and your international posturing is way too like superficial and moralist, then essentially it means that you are just leeching off the public. As I said, you now relate to foreign nations more than you care about your own people. You now want to look good in UN. You now want to look good in Madison Square Garden, but you don't care what's going on in India. So foreign policy diplomacy is a sorry excuse. That Mo Jaishankar gave a very good speech in G20 summit. That's a sorry excuse to what the BJP has been doing internally.
Right. Okay. So on that serious note, we've got to call it a day for this Adda with Infi. Viewers, thanks for watching. Thanks for being a part of this station. If you like the video, please subscribe to the channel. Please like the channel and be a part of our onward journey. Thank you, Infi, for being with us, and thank you, viewers.
Thank you.